The gospel is from Luke 16, verses 19 through 31. Jesus tells the parable in which the poor one is lifted up and the rich one is sent away empty. Jesus makes it clear that this ethic of merciful reversal is not new, but is as old as Moses and the prophets. Jesus said, "There was a rich man who was dressed in purple and fine linen and who feasted sumptuously every day. And at his gate lay a poor man named Lazarus, covered with sores, who longed to satisfy his hunger with what fell from the rich man's table. Even the dogs would come and lick his sores. The poor man died and was carried away by the angels to be with Abraham. And the rich man died and was buried. Now in Hades, where he was tormented, he looked up and saw Abraham far away with Lazarus by his side. He called out, 'Father Abraham, have mercy on me and send Lazarus to just dip his finger into water and cool my tongue, for I am in agony in these flames.' But Abraham said, 'Child, remember that during your lifetime you received your good things, and Lazarus in like manner evil things. But now he is comforted here, and you are in agony. Besides all this, between you and us is a great chasm, and it's been fixed, so that those who may want to pass from here to you cannot do so, and no one can cross from there to us.' The rich man said, 'Well then, Father, I beg you to send him to my father's house, for I have 5 brothers, that he may warn them, so that they will not also come into this place of torment.' Abraham replied, 'They have Moses and the prophets. They should listen to them.' He said, 'No, Father Abraham, but if someone goes to them from the dead, they'll repent.' And he said to him, 'If they do not listen to Moses and the prophets, neither will they be convinced, even if someone rises from the dead.'" Here ends the gospel. You can sit down. I've done this a couple times and it still makes me nervous every time I'm up here. But good morning. And okay, so wow, when Pastor Mike called, I said, sure, I guess I can try it again. So after saying I would do the message today, I got these lessons and the readings and the gospel, and these are some heavy-duty passages. And I did do my due diligence, because Pastor Mike sends you this letter and says, look at the commentaries, go on these other pastor sites, which I did. And they didn't make it any easier. So I am going to ask you to indulge me, because I'm going to share my layman's take on it, and it might not be what you've heard before. So in case you didn't want to hear some of these passages any more than I did, let me repeat some of them again. It's all about money, honey. Let the finger pointing begin. Money is the culprit here. Our second lesson starts right off with this warning, and Paul doesn't soften the blow a bit. He says, yep, money's the root of all evil. And unfortunately, many times these are the only words that we hear from that passage. And it is a strong warning. I mean, he keeps saying, don't fall into temptation, beware. Money can become a snare of hurtful and senseless desires. It can be your ruin and your destruction. But what I think Paul is really saying is that actually money by itself is not bad. It exists, it's there, we all have to have it, we all have to use it. But I think what he's saying is it's the power that we humans can give it that could make it bad. If I have so much that I can have everything I desire, it becomes easy to confuse what I really need from what I want. And you can see it almost every day in commercials. The newest one I've seen is the new one for the iPhone. I think it's the 11 something. And it's interesting because before Apple would have, everybody wants it. Everybody's standing in line. And now if you notice what it is, it's isolated. It's like, only the select few, it's like almost like it's in outer space, and it's going to be so great desire because of all this great things to do. And it's like, you really want that because you're going to be the only one that has it. So, yeah, I think we put the power in the hands of money. And I think, it's like a little kid that goes into the store and sees a toy and starts saying, oh, mommy, 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 please, I really, really need that. And I think when we have a lot, what happens is our wants become our false needs. And the more money I have, the more my false needs are filled. Soon I don't really need anything. I'm in charge. And I can start using God to excuse what I'm doing with my money, and I can start to love it and hang on to it and want more, instead of loving God and using my money for his work. Paul reminds us of that in the end of this lesson when he says, there is hope, but remember, with great wealth comes great responsibility. We need to love God first. Don't put your hope into uncertain riches. Be good. Be rich in good deeds. Be liberal and be generous. Now, we took our grandkids to a trip out west and hit a lot of different places, and we were on the West Coast. And my grandkids live in Princeton, just like here, and we don't really observe homeless people. I mean, we know they exist, but you just don't see them on the street like we saw there. And we had made a wrong turn trying to find some place, so we cut through a mall. And we cut through a mall and went behind the mall. And it was interesting because at that point I kind of felt like the rich man, because having seen it before and you're concentrating on where we're going to go. And usually the kids weren't paying attention, but I didn't give them their electronic things to play with, so they're watching out the window. And the little one, who's 8, as we're driving there, and Paul and I are talking about where we have to go, he goes, wow, Grandma, Grandpa, look at that guy. He's digging in the dumpster. And there was a young man, probably late teens, early 20s, and he's looking through a dumpster, moving cardboard boxes and stuff. And we went, oh, yeah, and, still kept going. Got to the end of the mall, about 5 dumpsters down, and there must have been a restaurant or a bakery. And on the top of this dumpster, sitting there in a clear plastic bag, huge bag, full of bagels. And it was interesting because my grandson says, gee, I hope he walks all the way to the end there because he's going to find some food. And it just reminded me of here was a man that has needs, and those bagels to me represented our wants that, we are so used to in the United States of having, let me see which kind of bagel I want today, or what do I want, what's like right now it's pumpkin spice. Ooh, I want something with pumpkin spice. And the fact that with all of our laws and everything we have, that they have to throw it out and they can't necessarily give it away. And it was a real eye-opener. And then when I saw these passages, I thought, oh, I feel like the rich man. You just don't always pay attention to that. So anyway, that was, I liked Paul's thing with Timothy. It gave you hope. So then I said, yay, I got through that one. And it didn't look so bad after all. And I kind of listened to what God was saying and said, okay. Then I read the gospel. So, hey, did you see that rich guy who lives in the mansion over there? He died. Just the other day I saw him, and he looked wonderful. And he was dressed in this really fancy suit. It was the coolest shade of dark purple I'd ever seen. And he had this whole entourage with him. There was even a catering truck outside of his home with servers carrying tubs after tubs of food up to his house. There were boxes marked with lobster, champagne, caviar, you name it, it was delivered to his house. And somebody told me, I think it was Charlie, he said, that happens every day, so he must feast every day. Yeah, well, did you hear about Larry? He passed away too. That poor homeless guy just didn't have any breaks. I heard it was hard for him to get around, and he had developed sores all over, and that just before he died, there were some neighborhood dogs that would come by and lick him. I guess they found him lying on the sidewalk right outside of the rich guy's gate. Jesus starts his parable for today with the story of the rich man and Lazarus, and they both die. The rich man is now in a place of torment, and Lazarus is comforted and lying in Abraham's bosom. Brother, so maybe I did have the second lesson wrong. Maybe money might be so evil that it'll send us straight to the bad place. And then, of course, Jesus continues his story as the conversation goes on between the rich guy and Abraham. Now, the rich man sees Lazarus and says to Abraham, "Hey, can you please just send him over here with a drop of water on his finger to quench my burning tongue?" Not much to ask for, right? But Abraham says, "Nope, no can do." You see this chasm between us? It's a no man's zone. Nobody can go from one side to the other, no matter how hard they try. It's just not going to happen. So the rich man doesn't say much, but then he kind of thinks about it, and he goes, "Well, I have a bunch of brothers who are living their life just like I did, so how about, since Lazarus can't come over here, you send him back down to my brothers to shake him up so they can change their ways? Because I'm thinking, if they see a dead guy come back to life, they just might notice." Now it's looking like there might be some hope here. The rich guy is starting to think about somebody else besides himself, but Abraham still shoots him down and says, "Nope." They didn't listen to the messages of Moses and the prophets, and they won't be convinced just because someone should rise from the dead. Now, this is not one of those, I think, make you feel warm and fuzzy, Jesus loves me kind of readings. It sort of creeps in there and leaves this really uncomfortable feeling in the pit of your stomach. So where is the hope, I thought? What can I take away from this? So here's my layman take. I will say right away, I am not going to deal with heaven and hell. But what I see God saying in these passages, we know that Jesus was talking to the Pharisees and talking about their disbelief of him as the Messiah. But I also think he was talking to all of us. To me, I see this story or this parable as the law versus grace. The rich man based his life on riches. He was his own self-made man. He could use the laws to justify his behavior. He could ignore Lazarus as he lay at his gate because he was probably unclean with all the sores that he had, according to Jewish laws. Even in his conversations with Abraham, he never saw Lazarus as equal to him. He just wanted him to serve him as he had served so many others. The law separated, I think, the rich man from others, and he could hold himself blameless because of the law. So I see the chasm that Jesus was talking about as a very hopeful thing. I don't think it's necessarily about being rich and poor. I believe that Jesus was talking about law and grace. And I do believe that there is a chasm there that cannot be crossed. I cannot be saved by the law. It is only by grace that I'm saved. The Pharisees used the law to justify their behavior, to make themselves righteous. But as a Christian, I see that law as my condemnation. That's kind of where the torment comes in. You start to see it through Jesus' eyes. And the law shows me how much I need him and how much I need his saving grace. There is no way I can justify my sinful nature by how well I live by the law. And if I believe I could just live by the law and I could do it myself, then me and that rich guy are going to be roomies forever. But still, it did seem like the rich guy was starting to get it. He wanted his brothers to know what was going on, right? There was a couple words there that I think, again, shows he didn't understand. Because he says, go warn them. Not go share the story of God's goodness, but go warn them. He just didn't get the message of forgiveness, hope, and faith. It was still a message of law. You better shape up or else. I think Abraham's answer was also our answer too. Each of us has the choice to accept or reject Jesus' gift of grace and salvation. As much as I want my children and my grandchildren to know God's grace and love, I can only plant the seed. We can't make anyone else believe, but how we live our lives, how we interact with others, how we use our resources from God and our money and our time and our talents do make a difference in how people see Jesus through us. So I think the passage is full of hope. I can see myself, I can see what Jesus has done for me, and then, because I know that deep, deep love, the 1 Timothy passage says, be liberal, be generous. Yeah, I have everything I need when I have God's grace and love. So it becomes much more easier to give away what I have and to share that, because I know no matter what happens in life, I'm going to be taken care of. I have the love of Jesus. And I think that that's where the hope is. And I do have to share one story with you. I will say that I have a couple times I have gone over to I've gone over to the Methodist Church and listened to Pastor Gino over there. One cool thing I think that they do at the beginning of the service is we have our prayer concerns, but at that church they stand up and they pass the mic around, and they are so willing to share that, which we do here with prayer. So I want you to know, because they share both needs and they share joys. So I want to share a joy that I know that all of you who pray for all of us, and we put things in, and we might not put a name, but we say prayer for someone. I want to share this story because I know there were a lot of people who were praying with me. So I have a granddaughter. My oldest granddaughter has struggled with abuse as far as drugs and alcohol, and she went and through different programs, did well, came out, got back into the world, and fell again. And so we had done that twice, and all the time through, you've been praying, and you've heard me say before, especially when I'm praying for my kids or my grandkids, I'm like the persistent widow, come on, God, please, do something. So always praying this, and so she ended up deciding out of the clear blue, because I mentioned Teen Challenge to her many, many times. No, Grandma, I'm okay for a power outside of myself with AA, but no, I don't want to go to Teen Challenge. No way. And all of a sudden, this last time, out of her mouth came, I'm going to Teen Challenge, which surprised all of us. And she went through the program, graduated, and she's now in their leadership program. And she just called me the other day, and she said, so Grandma, I need to let you know. She said that we'd been all sitting around talking about how we got into the program, and, a lot of the people who are here with me got placed by the court. And she said, then they turned to me and said, so Kaylee, how'd you get into Teen Challenge? And why? She said, well, I absolutely never wanted to go here, but suddenly I made the commit, and I couldn't figure out why until I was here for a while. And then I just figured the only thing I can figure out is my grandma prayed me into here. So I just want you to know, don't give up. Prayer works, and sometimes it takes a long time. This was almost a 3-year battle, but there's always hope. Thanks.